Hi, this is Jeremy Benson, and welcome to This Week in the GRC. This past week, we had crowned two GRC champions, one in softball and one in girls golf. So we'll go right to that action. The first champion, as we said, Polo, was crowned as the girls softball champion. They knocked off North Andrew to win the GRC softball championship, and you can read all about it in the GRC blog this week. To go to the GRC blog, you can go to grandriverconference.blogspot.com, or if you're on the grandriverconference.com webpage, you can go right to the GRC blog by following social media and going to GRC blog. But you can read all about Polo's win over North Andrew to win the GRC championship. This was Polo's second conference championship. On the GRC webpage, you can see Polo also won the conference in 2014. They tied for the title with Gallatin, but this is their second championship this year. Polo right now stands at, I believe, 17-0 for the season. They are ranked number one in Class 1, and they're getting ready for the districts. They still have to play Benton this week, or still have to play at the Benton tournament this week, and then they'll be getting ready for districts. The other GRC champion that was crowned this week is South Harrison won the GRC Girls Golf Championship. Abby Owens of South Harrison won the individual championship. You'll see that on the GRC blog too. That article is out there. So you'll see the top 10 finishers. Abby Owens of South Harrison was first, and then Abby Conan of Putnam County, Ellie Koppel of Gallatin, Ashley Cannon of South Harrison, Bridget Heitschuh of Worth County, Courtney Krause of Gallatin, and I apologize if I'm not saying these names right. Then three Maysville girls, Hannah Reiner, Haley Swiger, and Claire Renfro, and then Elena Cowling finished 10th from Trenton. And you'll see we have a picture of the top 10 finishers in order. Appreciate John Cowling of Trenton sending that in. And then the team standings here. These are everyone that had four players that were able to play. South Harrison, Maysville, Gallatin, Worth County, Putnam County, Albany, Trenton, and King City. Stanberry did have three players, so they technically finished ninth, but they didn't have four players. North Harrison and Princeton each had one. And so all of their scores are there. And we also had a picture of the North Harrison team that won. That was courtesy of South Harrison Lady Bulldogs Golf Facebook page. So if you'd like to check out that, that's also on the GRC blog for that. But South Harrison with that win, and you can go see the information on the GRC website on grandriverconference.com. That is their first golf championship since 2008. So congratulations to Polo for winning the softball championship and to South Harrison for winning the girls golf championship. Great accomplishments by both teams, and also to Abby Owens of South Harrison for winning the individual championship this week. Additionally, in the Grand River Conference this past week, we had another round of football games on Friday night. And these final scores we had there in eight-man Albany, they got a little bit of a light game compared to what they had the last 2 weeks after two 2-point games over number two teams in the State. They won at halftime over St. Joe Christian 64-0. King City, a game that they trailed at halftime, pulled away from Rockport 72-6. North Andrew 54-6 over Stanberry. Pattonsburg 64-24 over Rich Hill, and Worth County 76-24 over Knox County. On the 11-man side, the top four teams played all of the bottom four teams this week. Gallatin 41-10 over Milan. Maysville 28-12 over Princeton. Trenton 24-6 over Polo, and Putnam County 55-14 over South Harrison. So I did publish on the blog the power poll, but one thing that I do want to show you is that the Maysville Princeton game was a game that I was at on Friday night, and that game. I wrote an article about that, and so there is information about that game. Maysville won 28-12. I do have a recap on the podcast. I have on the Instagram. I posted a video of the introductions, and that's one of the things I'm doing at each of the games that I go to is posting the introductions, and that I do have unofficial stats of the game. So if you want to check that out, that's on the blog. And then, as I said, I posted the power poll for this week tonight. On the 8-man side, as I said, the top four all won last week, but this upcoming week, the top four are going to be playing each other. Gallatin, Trenton, Putnam County, and Maysville, as I said, all won last week. Upcoming this week, Gallatin is going to be playing Putnam County, so that's the number 1 versus number 3 teams, and Trenton is going to be playing Maysville. That's going to be a Saturday game this week, Trenton at Maysville. And then Milan is going to be at South Harrison. That's 5 versus 6 teams, and Polo will be hosting Princeton, the 7 versus 8 team. I will be at the Milan South Harrison game this week. I have not seen South Harrison play this year, so I'm going to be uh, at that game to see Milan and South Harrison for that game. So that's the game I'm going to be at. I will not be at the game on Saturday with Trenton and Maysville because I'm going to try to make it to the softball game that I'll be talking about a little bit later. On the 8-man side, the big game this week is North Andrew at Albany. North Andrew is ranked number 1 in 8-man. Albany's ranked number 3 in 8-man. North Andrew and Albany are both unbeaten, so that's going to be a big game this week. The winner, definitely if North Andrew wins, they'll stay number 1, but there's a good chance if Albany wins, they will go number 1. So there's a good chance whoever wins that game will be number 1 in the state. Archie is number 2 in the state, so there could, Archie could jump to number 1 if Albany wins, but there's a good chance that Albany will take North Andrew's votes if they win. But that's a big game this week, North Andrew at Albany. I will be talking to Clifton Grooms on the Cliff Notes podcast about this game tomorrow. So look for that later this week for that podcast. If you follow Clifton Grooms on the Cliff Notes podcast, Worth County, after falling to Albany a couple weeks ago, they've had a couple of big wins. King City last week in Knox County. They're Pattonsburg, so Worth County's been taking it out on some of their opponents since then. King City is going to be at Schuyler County this week. As I said, they won over Rockport after trailing at halftime. Stanberry's off this week. Pattonsburg will be at Worth County. And then St. Joe Christian, they're going to be hosting Northland Christian. That might be their best chance at a win this week. They've been struggling the last few seasons. They do have some players coming up on the junior high side. They've been winning some games there. They have a good group of 7th graders, but they're still struggling on the high school side on varsity right now. But they do face a Northland Christian team that I think is going to be more competitive. So they have a shot at a win this week. So they're still at the bottom of the conference on the 8-man side for number 7. And so that's where I'm at the power poll for the week for football and who the teams are playing this week. I also did want to talk about the softball tournaments that are coming up on Saturday. As I mentioned, I'm going to be at the Benton softball tournament for the championship round. That will be later in the afternoon, but the softball is going to be all day. It's going to be out at Heritage Park in St. Joe on the riverfront. Polo is going to be at that tournament from the GRC. There's going to be also some very good teams there. Marceline is ranked number 1 in the state in Class 2, tied with Sherwood, and I'm going to be talking about Sherwood in just a second too. They have a GRC angle there too, but they're tied at number 1 in Class 2 with Sherwood. Polo is number 1 in Class 1, and if Polo and Marceline both win all this, Polo would be a Pool B number 1, Marceline be Pool A number 1. There's a good shot of those two ending up in this championship game. So it's something that would be that I'd be rooting for that as a GRC fan. And so if they match up, I'll be covering that game. I'll be covering the Polo championship game if they make it to the championship or the 3rd place game at this point, but I'm going to be covering Polo in their final game at the Benton tournament on Saturday, and I will have coverage of that in the podcast and the blog on Saturday for the coverage, and hopefully another great interview from Coach Becky Ross, who has been, if you've joined the podcast this year, she's had some great interviews. If you've missed those, you can go back and check on the podcast and listen to some of her past interviews. So she's been a great guest on the podcast this year. Um, So this is the matchup, as you can see on here, for the Benton tournament. There's also going to be another tournament in Princeton. The George Scurlock tournament is going to be in Princeton. Princeton is one of the GRC teams in it. Gallatin is also in it, and so is Albany. Princeton is going to be taking on Winston at 8:30, and Gallatin will be playing Gilman City at 8:30. Albany will be facing Mercer at 10:15. Former GRC team Bramer will be facing Grundy County at 10:15. Winston does have a GRC angle. They are co-oping with GRC member Pattonsburg this year, and they'll be taking on Princeton. And so there are three GRC teams, and of course former member Bramer, and then Winston co-oping with GRC Pattonsburg. So there's definitely a GRC representation at this tournament. And so we will be posting some scores from both the tournaments this week on Saturday during that tournament. But as I said, I will have coverage from the Benton tournament for polo in the championship round on Saturday. Tonight we had a really good night for GRC softball. There were 9 games tonight in GRC. Excuse me, 10 games tonight, but there were 8 non-conference games, 2 conference games, and in those games, and we have some messages here coming from Devin Albertson, and so those popped up on my screen, so apologize for that. But there were 10 games in the GRC, and 7-1 in non-conference games, but really some notable games. I mentioned that Sherwood is #1 in Class 2, tied with Marceline, that could possibly play in polo in the Benton tournament. And South Harrison played Sherwood in Independence tonight. It was a 0-0 game going to the bottom of the sixth. South Harrison scored 3 runs in the bottom of the sixth. They did retire Sherwood in the top of the seventh, and they defeated Sherwood 3-0. A big win for South Harrison today. And then Polo faced rival Bramer. Bramer was also ranked in the top 10 in Class 1, and they knocked off Bramer 7-0. So 2 big wins by GRC teams, but overall, a great night by the GRC, 7-1 in non-conference games. So you can see the scores here. So a great night overall for the GRC in softball. And overall in the season, uh, this is one of the things that we have for all the sports, the major, I would say, team sports. And you can see on the drill downs, if you're ever interested in just looking at how teams have done in various situations, I put up here how GRC's done in non-conference games. So far, it's been a pretty good season for the GRC in non-conference, 73-61 this year. You'll see South Harrison 14-3 in non-conference games, and a couple of those losses were to Class 5 teams, Liberty North, and then a team over in the St. Louis area. So South Harrison has faced some very tough competition this year. Polo is unbeaten, so they're definitely unbeaten against non-conference teams. Milan, who has finished lower in the conference in GRC. They've been very good against non-conference teams. North Andrew has played a lot of non-conference. Gallatin 6-1 in non-conference. So very good competition against non-conference teams this year by the GRC, and 12 over 500 this year. So those are some things that are happening in the GRC this week, and some things that are upcoming. If you like what you see and hear from here, share it with others. I'll be sharing this on Facebook and Twitter, but share this with others if you want to hear more and be notified. Like this on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, so you can get notified when I have this. My goal is to have this week in the GRC every week. I am going to try to do it on Sundays, but I did not have it this past Sunday because I was out of town, and then the Chiefs were playing that night, and so I didn't have it on Sunday. So this is a Tuesday edition, but my goal is to do this most Sundays, but it may be other evenings some weeks. But as I said, this is Jeremy Benson this week in the GRC, and we'll catch up with you again next week. Thank you, and have a good week in the GRC.